Hey guys, another episode of the Why the Pros Play, and in this case it is Phoenix. Now, Phoenix, in my opinion, I use the example of a Swiss Army knife for Tassadar, where he was kind of just filled in whenever people needed just about a little bit of everything. Phoenix to me is the Swiss Army knife of damage dealers these days. Before it was kind of Greymane when you just needed physical damage, but you really just kind of needed any type of damage, whether that was melee, ranged, could do camps, could do waves, could race, could do structure damage, could do decent damage during team fights, could do sustained damage, burst. And Phoenix is kind of that new tool that everyone's using to fit a lot of those little roles. Do you need AoE damage? Do you need single target damage? Do you need burst damage? Do you need sustained damage? Do you need to be able to do camps? He can kind of do a little bit of everything. He has safe damage, but he also has aggressive damage, both with pros and cons. Now, Phoenix is one of those heroes that has been kind of nerfed several times, making it to where in pro play, he's used for exactly what he needs to be used for, but in higher ranks, it can get a little bit more challenging. And I've got a game that's going to be pretty good. I'll bring that back up when we get to that. So, what are the builds that are being used on Phoenix? Put simply, he's kind of, again, one of those things where you just pick whatever you need. However, there is one build that kind of stands above all of the rest, and it's these first two builds. Put simply, it's this first one, but we'll get through it as we go. So, firstly, Arsenal Synergy is the most common pick, which is pretty much if you attack someone 3 times with your repeater cannon, your next basic attack with Phase Bomb will do 150% more damage and splash in a 50% larger area. Why is that so commonly picked in the pro scene? The answer is because it is a safe, large amount of burst after quickly doing damage to a front line. Oftentimes, if you're going against like a Muradin in the front line, you can tag him pretty quickly with your repeater cannon and then fire off a shot in the back line, dealing a huge amount of damage, killing the waves that are back there. Not just is it a good poke and a good burst, but it's a great finisher. Because it increases the radius and makes the last hit do so much damage, if someone's trying to get away with like 10% health and they get right behind their wall, you can fire off a bomb at the wall, dealing enough damage in splash to blow up the person that's behind the wall. So, that's his most common pick at level 1. However, sometimes mobile offense is being picked up if it's really just a single target, close range damage that you need. Oftentimes it's used if you have something that's like has a lot of setup, so you're safe. Because people, right as you have that setup, everyone's trying to run away, so you're a lot safer. You don't need this extra poke. You just need the extra damage. Level 4, it's pretty much always target acquired. Makes it to where if you attack someone that is slowed with your repeater cannon, it increases your movement speed. Allows you to really move around the fight a lot faster by quickly attacking someone that your team's already slowed. But you can also trigger this by yourself by simply using your Q, which will slow the enemies, so you don't actually need your team to make this work, and it just still helps you move around the fight faster than mount speed, to be completely honest. Level 7 Combat Advantage is the pick that is picked up the majority of the time, and it makes it to where your Plasma Cutter deals 35% more damage to slowed targets. Well, your Plasma Cutter also slows targets, as well as everyone else on your team in pro play usually slows targets. So you can either trigger it yourself or simply just utilize your team to do that extra damage. This talent seems interesting because it's always picked, but generally it doesn't do very much for the playstyle that you're actually doing, so I do think it's kind of a fascinating talent. Level 10, always Purification Salvo with 2 exceptions. And the strange part is I use MasterLeague.net to show you the builds, but it only shows you the builds that reach level 20. There are actually a lot of times where they don't reach level 20, and there's still builds that are used. For example, the other ult has been used in a few different ways, and one of the major ways that it's being used is to counter major objectives. On Tomb of the Spider Queen, there was a clip in a pro game where someone used a planet cracker and was able to hit all 3 of the different objectives on Tomb of the Spider Queen. So all 3 of the spiders, like one spawned in this lane, one spawned in this lane, one spawned in this lane, and he had a planet cracker that hit through all 3 of them, killing off all 3 of the objective almost instantly. Like throughout, the planet cracker did about 70 to 80% of all of the minions, all of the spiders' health. It's also used on Brax's holdout to counter that objective. The other time that it's sometimes used is in combination with like a Maiev who pulls everyone in, uses her ult, uses the W, and then he planet crackers as everyone keeps getting pushed back into the planet cracker. However, the most reliable one is a purification salvo, which does double damage if the enemies are slowed, and you can trigger your own slow. If not, it works really well with like a lightning breath that can do a quick slow. Level 13 auxiliary shield is always picked up, with the exception of the few times you need that spell armor. It just means that you can pretty much give yourself shield back at a pretty decent rate. Level 16, there are several options that are picked. Lowering basic ability cooldowns. If you need more spell damage on your team, this is the answer. Lowers your ult cooldown, lowers your Q cooldown. So if you ever need more spell damage, say they have a lot of physical armor, this is your answer. If you need more spell damage in burst, you go with this one. So if you need more like constant spell damage, something on like a Volskaya, this is better. But if you need more burst to follow up your team, this one's better. And then offensive cadence is if you need to melt down one specific tank. Level 20 in Pro is always Unconquered Spirit. Means that when you take fatal damage, your shield capacitor regains 800 shields, and then it goes on a 2-minute cooldown. Let's get right into this game. This is a Pro game between Gen.G and Dignitas. Now, we've seen this game. This was part of the finals. It was one of the games in the finals. So we've already seen it. We know the outcome. But if you don't know the outcome, you can still have fun. So starting off, Gen.G's Rich is playing Phoenix. So we know we're going to see some heavy mechanics. And also we're going to see some plays of someone who uses no quick cast, which I always think is fascinating. But we'll talk about that probably in another video later. Let's fast forward through some of the beginning areas because this is not that exciting. Let's get right into it. Now, the start of the team fights, what you're going to see a lot of Phoenix doing is focusing on poking with the phase bomb, and they're going to try to just get free phase bombs off whenever they can, just quick ones. You'll often see them fire off a lot of shots at the middle of waves as well. Not using the cutter too much, only to be a follow-up to something that's already out, or to slow someone who's trying to chase like a Garrosh. But generally, you're just going to see mostly the phase bomb being fired off. And you'll see that a little bit he's using a trick to increase the attack speed of his phase bomb by firing a phase bomb, taking a step as he's switching to repeater, and then switching back to phase bomb to fire off another phase bomb. It's a little bit of an exploit that should be patched pretty soon, but you can definitely see, if you ever see this, let me lock on really quick. You can see how it's swapping back and forth, even though he's only firing phase bombs. It's a trick that I might explain a little bit later, but several people have done videos on it to explain how it increases your damage by about 25% when you're using phase bombs. I personally think that it's something that will be fixed because it's not exactly an intended mechanic, and they don't know exactly why it's being caused. So they might do some code to change it around later. They might just do kind of a hard fix where they make it to where there's a cooldown in switching, a longer cooldown in switching. That would pretty much solve the problem. Then they could just buff the damage of one of his abilities and kind of even that out. Anyways, let's get back into why he is being played and less about this shifting back and forth that we're seeing a lot of. So, he does very sustained damage, a lot of poke. I doubt he's going to stay as high of damage as the Hanzo for very long, as the Hanzo has a much longer range. But as of right now, you can see how his damage, his siege damage and his hero damage is much higher than just about anyone else on either team. And it's because he just has very safe damage. You can quickly poke with your phase bombs. You can take a step back. You can poke with your phase bombs. If someone ever gets too close, you use your laser to kind of really drop them down. Level 4, remember I said that there's not really much change. You always pick up the target acquire so you can move around. Now watch how fast he starts moving around when he does get in these fights for a long period of time. We'll see if I can pull up another fight where he's using his repeater cannon. But you'll see a lot of times when he starts using his repeater cannon really fast, he pretty much is moving around at like just really like faster than mount speed. It's crazy. So taking out a camp, you can see he's using the technique where the last minion is not attacking him. He's using the other technique to make sure that his phase bomb is firing off faster, as well as he used his plasma cutter while he was stepping inside of the area to have the laser go around him, taking out the camp very quickly. Again, like what I said about Phoenix earlier, is that he is kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to picking up a damage dealer. I find that in this current meta, and really the last 6 months or so, it's hard to get a physical damage dealer, as most people do mostly spell damage. Even someone like Sonya, the majority of her damage is spell damage, even though she feels like a physical auto attacker. So having someone in the meta that you can always pick up for some extra physical damage is always nice, even though he can do a lot of magic damage as well, or spell damage, whatever you want to call it. So you can see he's going into, when he's running away, he uses his repeater cannon so that he moves really, really fast. This is not sped up. You can see he's moving very fast. So if someone starts chasing him, he immediately shifts over going to the repeater cannon, and he can get out very, very quickly. They go into gank this Yrel, and again, repeater cannon, he is just doing a ton of damage. He used 3 repeater cannons, did the extra damage with the what is it called, Arsenal Synergy, and you can see the crits coming out from the phase bombs whenever he does that. Generally, when he's attacking a tower, if he wants the specific tower to go down very quickly, he'll shift to repeater cannon, you'll see that. But if he's just doing it pretty safe, he's going to be using phase bombs, or if he also wants to destroy the wall at the same time, then he'll also use phase bombs. He used again, the bonus damage, 3 quick repeaters, and then onto a phase bomb. He's very quick at knowing which one he wants to use for which time, and he aggressively pushed, trying to get the Yrel off, and now they are channeling for top and bot to see if they can get the dragon. But while they are getting the top lane, they're missing a lot in terms of value for this. You can see he swaps back to repeater right as the Garrosh starts taking steps forward. He also uses his plasma cutter to make sure that he's slowed, and it makes it almost impossible for him to actually get thrown because he can slow the Garrosh, speed himself up, and get away. And we're going to fast forward a little bit. Now, level 7, again, we see the combat advantage being picked up. I always think it's strange just because there are other options, but generally, the reset capabilities, you don't want to be using your teleport to get in, you want to save it to get out, and the divert power generally is a little too risky. So as much as the other level 7s might be good, the safe one and the one that the pros tend to pick up is the combat advantage. Let's fast forward. Again, he does this camp. There was one thing I wanted to mention about this camp, but I don't feel like backing up, so when he does the camp the next time, I'll explain it. So back into just getting damage off. Once again, his damage stats are very, very high. We can see him keeping up with the highest siege damage on their team, Poik playing Jaina, as well as almost doubling the enemy's hero damage by just quickly poking. I mean, it's some of the safest damage that you're going to get in the game, and when you get into actual fights, it's very, very consistent. He's sitting here for flank in case the Jaina steps out. They can teleport in, go for the blow up, but they end up not getting it because the Jaina was playing very, very safe. And I don't know why they're back over here. Yeah, they stopped to like go to the camp. I understand they didn't want to go through there. That makes sense, but it was just an odd hesitation. As of level 10, we're pretty much always going to see a Purification Salvo picked up, especially on a map like Dragonshire. Now, he will want to try to combo it with slows, so usually what we're going to see is we're going to see a Purification Salvo go out, and then we're either going to see him using his Plasma Cutter to slow people, or we're going to see someone like the Malthael, which he did not get the slow talent, so instead we're going to have to see someone like the... Really, it's just going to come down to the Anubarak using a... quick slow to anyone in order for this to work out. We do have the Bed of Barbs, however, so that's likely what they're going to be comboing is the Purification Salvo into a Bed of Barbs. We'll keep everyone slowed so it does the 50% more damage. Purification Salvo with a slow on them is some of the highest damage in the most reliable type of ult, because it's very easy to get that ult off, and it's a very reliable damage because it's not really dodgeable once it actually gets out. We see that the Repeater Cannon, the slow, and a variety of other tools comes out immediately, making it easy for him to get out there. He gets the 3 shots from the Repeater and then immediately switches over into his thing. We don't see the Q from the Bed of Barbs, so we didn't get a lot of crit damage out of that, as he didn't have his Q available and the Bed of Barbs didn't go out, so no one actually died from his Purification Salvo, which makes it a little bit weak to be able to use that. It's a 90-second cooldown ult. It used to be really, really short. Now it's 90 seconds, and if you don't get that extra 50% damage, it's almost not worth casting at all. Blow-up composition goes right into that Nubrak, but they aren't able to pick him up. And we see that he goes for the dragon a couple times. Dignitas is not letting him get this first dragon. He's going to stand back a little bit. Remember that Rich also is one of the people on his team that will shot call. So every once in a while, you'll see him take a step back and not do anything. Most likely, he's taking a gauge of the map, getting a quick idea of what he wants to do, telling his team, and then he's getting back together. Sometimes you'll even see him take his hands off his mouse and keyboard in the middle of a game to kind of stretch him out. And I've seen this happen with a lot of pros. Usually, it's a European pros that I'll see this done, where oftentimes when they die, or oftentimes that they're playing, they will kind of take their hands off the keyboard for a little bit. So we do see a pretty good engage right here, but the water elemental goes right onto the Phoenix. The Phoenix's E is interrupted by the Urel, and he's immediately taken out. That's one of the downsides about Phoenix, is the fact that he's a relatively squishy hero, and if you're not abusing his range, you're likely going to be killed, because his warp, while it's a powerful escape, it does have a channel time in the pros, especially when you're on land. Land means that you have a ping of 0, which means that your actions don't need to take time to, I believe it's not actually 0, but it's rounded down to 0, but put simply, your actions won't have a delay to them. So that's one of the things that I think the enemies get a dragon here, yeah. So that's one of the things that if you do try to use your E, it's very easy to interrupt because there's no delay. So someone like Urel could easily press trait W in the time that you're trying to use your escape. So playing safe is key. We see just this safe damage. Again, just the Q, the auto attacks from his repeater cannon, and the firing off. Level 13, once again, it's pretty simple which talents he picks up. I've already explained the build. It's Auxilary Shield. Now, the level 16, he might adjust it a little bit because the percent health might be good if the enemies are getting these dragons, and the percent health is really good against Garrosh because percent health damage is not affected by armor, which Garrosh gets more and more armor as the game goes on. So, we may end up seeing the, the percent health damage being picked up at that level, maybe, but I'm not exactly sure. But the level 13 auxiliary shields was picked up. Pretty much makes it to where you reduce his maximum health by 10%, you increase his shields by 20%, and you get shields from using auto attacks. Quick kill there, and they do start going to pick up a camp. We may not be able to see the trick that I wanted to explain on the siege camp because I don't know if he's going to pick it up again, but essentially he'll fire a shot at the siege camp, then he'll take a step back, making it to where the siege camp will step closer to each other, and then he'll go and start attacking it. It makes it a lot easier to land your shots. You don't need to worry about something not hitting both of them, and it works with a lot of heroes that have some sort of AoE effect. You can use that method of taking a step back on the on any ranged camp to kind of group them up a little bit. You can see he's firing off just the 3 repeaters and then his, and if you saw how much damage it did about a third to a fourth of Tracer's health when he did the Arsenal synergy. But again, when you're playing on this at this level of play, you can't play around too much. He's got to get out. He's got to use his repeaters so that he can move fast enough to get away from people. As remember, he moves faster than mount speed as long as he has those 3 repeaters. But he keeps doing the 3 repeaters in the arsenal, which is making him a little too risky. Doesn't really matter too much as he is able to come back up, clear up the camp, and get back out there. There are some other Phoenix Pro players that are very, very good. I just wanted to show Rich as, again, these are the HEC winners. So Genji ended up winning HEC, so I really wanted to show Genji's playstyle. So we did see the percent health. I kind of figured that was going to happen. It's really powerful against Garrosh, and it's also really good on this particular map. So that's the kind of fun part about seeing that picked up, as it's not the usual pick, but it is a good pick for this particular map. We see that once again, you don't see the crit damage coming off from the Purification Salvo. There was no form of slow that was used to double, or it's not double, but increase the damage by 50%. Again, I personally believe that this is a mistake, and that this could be fixed by just changing around how you play, but either way, that's... yeah, so he teleports away. He does have he had the extra movement speed for a second, but Generally, I feel like he's not doing as much damage as he could as if his team just actually worked with him. The challenge is, for example, Malthael, he wins a lot more against Yrel if he gets Touch of Death. However, if Malthael would have gone the talent where his Q slows, he probably would have been more likely to win team fights, as he can get that 50% more damage on Purification Salvo. We see this extra movement speed. He utilized it to get a couple extra shots off from his phase bomb, but generally it wasn't able to finish anyone off. The Hanzo, however, was able to finish off everyone, as well as the Malthael. So with all of these, it should be easy for them to go down and get the dragon. Late game death timers make it to where all you have to do is kind of survive. You could lose 2 or 3 dragons and then come back at the end of the game and then start winning. And that's one of the challenging parts about pro play, is how well people can abuse this. And generally in Hero League as well, if you're ever at a time where you feel like these games are going really long, if you can't close out a game very early, you're going to always struggle. So that's where I recommend trying to close out games as early as possible. It gives the enemies less time to come back. So the Yrel go immediately. Now, she used the E a little too early. She didn't end up interrupting anything. And now he still has his teleport, and he still has all of the rest of it. We see the 6% damage did a lot to them. And in this case, once again, no crit damage from his Purification Salvo. Pretty much this entire game, they didn't do any sort of synergy with that. But you can see, even without the synergy, he still did really, really well this game. And we can look at the damage as he is still topping the damage. Hanzo is catching up. I did mention he probably would. But the enemies just are nowhere near the amount of damage in team fights. And in terms of siege damage, he's even topping that as well. So he's generally just dominating just about everything in these games, and that's really what Fenix can do. He can do just about a little bit of everything. He's not quite the best in terms of those. For example, for really long range damage, Hanzo's much better. For really short range damage, you've got Greymane, who's much better. But because he can do safe damage until the fast damage is needed, he's just generally a really, really powerful hero. So that is why the pros are playing Fenix. Thank you so much for watching. And by the way, guys, normally I'd say feel free to check out my other videos. I definitely still think you should check out all my other videos, but I will be making a Patreon very, very soon. It might actually already be up, so feel free to check the link in the description below, as the Patreon might already be up. If it is, that is there to support me, but also to get some exclusive content. We're going to have special exclusive stuff for people. Will see things like coaching sessions that I have that I don't actually post on the channel, as I coach about 3 to 7 people a week now. I will post anything that they actually let me post, because I always ask permission. If they want, it's going to be posted on there. You're going to get special rooms in the Discord. I might also post some videos early on the Patreon compared to other things. And there is one Patreon tier that will allow me to watch a replay of yours once a month. And I will track the progress to make sure that you're improving, different areas that you can improve in, and kind of go along with you as you're improving over the months. If you're interested, feel free to check out my Patreon in the description below. Otherwise, thank you again, everyone who's been watching all of my videos. This is why the pros have been playing Fenix, especially Rich, and feel free to check out all of my other videos.